Hallo maats en welkom by ons kinderbediening vandag. Voordat ons begin wil ek gou vir julle 'n versie lees uit 1 Kronieke 29 vers 11 en dit sê: Alles in die hemel en op aarde behoort aan U, Here. So kan jy raai waaroor ons praat vandag? Ja, ons praat oor alles wat aan my behoort, behoort ook aan God. Maar ek seker dit het al met julle gebeur, maar partykeer dan is dit 'n maatjie se verjaarsdag en jy word uitgenooi na die verjaarsdag en dan moet jy vir daai maatjie 'n persentjie gee en dan die persentjie wat jou mamma vir daai maatjie gekoop het, wil jy so graag hê en dit is vir jou so moeilik om dit vir daai maatjie te gee, maar jy weet jy moet van die maatjie verjaar. En net so is dit ook partykeer moeilik om goed van onsself vir die Here te gee. Nou ek ken 'n Bybelstorie waar koning Dawid, ek is seker julle weet wie is koning Dawid, ook alles moes gee vir God, maar hy het dit gedoen omdat hy dit wou doen, omdat hy geweet het dat alles wat hy het, behoort nie aan hom nie, dit behoort aan God, want God voorsien vir ons alles, so alles is eintlik God se. Kom ons kyk wat het koning Dawid vir alles vir God gegee en sy kind Salomo.
Solomon was the son of King David and had grown to become a great king himself. Solomon was a very wise king, and he did many great things. But the greatest work of Solomon's reign was the building of the house of God, which was called the temple. Solomon planned very carefully. That's because building the temple was very important work. It mattered a lot to Solomon. That's because his father, King David, had wanted to build the temple and had prepared for it by gathering lots of gold, silver, stone, and cedar. Solomon knew how much the temple mattered to his dad. He knew how much it mattered to God. So building the temple mattered to Solomon very much. He took great care to make sure everything was just right. The temple stood on Mount Moriah, which is the exact place where Abraham took his son Isaac to be sacrificed. The place where Solomon's father David had built an altar and the Lord appeared to him. This was a very important place, designed for a very important task: building God's house. Cedar for the roof was brought from faraway lands, and all the stones for the building of the temple were chiseled and shaped and fitted together before they were brought to Mount Moriah. And all the beams for the roof and the pillars of cedar were carved and made to join each other. This was so that as the walls arose, no sounds of hammers or chisels were heard. God's house was built quietly. Because building God's temple so that people could worship was so important to Solomon, he used the finest materials to build it. The walls were covered with pure gold. He decorated it with precious gems. Nothing was too good for God's house. It took King Solomon and his men 7 years to build the temple, but at last it was finished. When it was done, Solomon brought all the things his dad, King David, had gathered for the temple: the gold, silver, and other important items. Then he had the Ark of the Covenant brought to the temple, where it would sit in a place of honor, in the house of God. Finally, Solomon held a great service to let the people know the temple was ready. Solomon's greatest work was complete. He cared about the house of God. He cared about worship. So God used Solomon to build his temple where people could worship the one true God.
Maats, ek hoop julle het die storie geniet. Soos julle gesien het, het koning Dawid alles wat hy bymekaar gemaak het, aangeskuif na sy kind toe Salomo toe. En toe Salomo daar so was, en groot genoeg was het hulle 'n tempel vir God gebou. Nou ek wil vir julle nog 'n skrifversie lees, en dit staan in 2 Korintiërs 9 vers 7. Dit sê: Elkeen moet gee soos hy in sy hart besluit, nie uit spyt of uit dwangheid nie, want God het die blymoedige gewer lief. Wat beteken dit om 'n blymoedige gewer te wees? Dit beteken om bly te wees om vir God te gee, sonder om spyt te wees daaroor. Ek en jy het so baie om te gee. Dit hoef nie noodwendig geld te wees wat ons kry vir ons verjaarsdag of vir oupa en ouma nie. Dit kan ons vriendelikheid wees, dit kan ons tyd wees. Wat is jy bereid om vir God terug te gee vir alles wat hy vir jou doen? Dit is julle challenge hierdie week. Okay maats, julle moet 'n lekker week hê en ek sien julle volgende week.